Drop it on them random.
What up, y'all? Welcome to my top 5 of the month. Top 5 what? Top 5 best albums, top 5 best hip-hop albums, mixtape, blah, blah, blah. No. This is the top 5 albums or mixtape of any genre that I've been listening to. It's currently in my high rotation. That can include newer records, that can include old records, classics, obscure, whatever I'm vibing with. Why? The reason for this is the simple fact that we all do this, right? We all want to hear certain albums from time to time, and whether it be something new, whether it be something old, and we all get in that mode of listening to certain things, having our go-to. So every month I figured, since I tend to post a lot of different albums, nobody really knows what I'm listening to on a regular basis. One that I just added to my rotation, brand new, is Swizz Beatz' brand new album, Poison. Now, why did I select this album? Well, because I was pleasantly surprised when I heard it. You know, it's 10 tracks. Y'all know I like the shorter albums. And it features a number of dudes. Like, I mean, the list of people on here is dope as far as MCs. Lil Wayne got a, Pistol on My Side. Yeah, I know that record is dope. Jim Jones, Nas, Pusha T, Young Thug, 2 Chainz, French Montana. Now you may be saying to yourself, The Lox, Kendrick. But you may be saying to yourself, man, that's a crazy group of people. But I think what I really like about it is the fact that there's really not many tracks I skip. I may skip one, to be honest. Now, obviously, this is new in my rotation. It just had an impression on me, and I think it's really dope. So if you hate Swizz Beatz, you're probably not going to like this. I will say, obviously, Swizz Beatz is all on it as far as hooks and a couple of verses here and there. But literally, what's best about this album are the features, and the features dominate the records. That's what's dope about it. So when you listen to the Lox record, it's the Lox, and it's Jadakiss and Styles. The Kendrick part, I was kind of disappointed. I thought Kendrick was going to have a verse. He actually does the hook, and it's really like, so that was disappointing. But if you didn't like the Nasir album, and you felt like Nas wasn't really rhyming like he usually rhymed, the track he got on this Swizz Beatz album called Echo is worth your attention. He's basically talking about the 80s, Queensbridge, all of that. Everything that was happening in the 80s in the hood. And it's really dope. It's a nostalgia trip for those who want that Illmatic Part 2 or whatever. You're never gonna get it, but Swizz Beatz just came out. The album's called Poison. You should check it out. It's really dope. Now, the next album I've been listening to is actually Smoke Break. It's actually an R&B album, and it's by Ella Maya or May. I think it's Ella May. But it's a self-titled album, R&B soul, came out like maybe a couple of weeks ago. I love this album. I mean, I've been playing it constantly, for the past, since it came out, since I heard it. Obviously, everybody knows the lead single, Boot Up, right? Even if you didn't know she was saying Boot Up, it's like Boot Up, like BOTTU, like people in the TTUP, right? Like the people in IT would be like, yeah, Boot Up. But it is not that. It's Booed Up, right? So we all know that song. We all have heard it. It's a pretty dope record. And I didn't know what to expect from the album. The album has about 16 tracks, which usually I would cringe at a little bit. Like, I don't know if I want to hear that much. But when I tell you, man, I love it from beginning to end. It's kind of like the R&B that's perfect for me. Like, I am the first person to tell you that Mary J. Blige was probably the first R&B artist I was like, locked in on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always loved soul music, period. Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, whatever. But when I was younger, back in my day, we had, artists that would come out that kind of represented our time. You know what I'm saying? Like Mary J. Blige, like R. Kelly, Aaliyah. You know what I'm saying? And Mary J. Blige was like really my speed because I was a big hip hop fan, and to have someone who's singing over like hip hop beats, it just was dope. It was a dope pairing, and obviously, it was a direction that fortunately and unfortunately both genres was headed in. And because of Mary J. Blige, that opened me up to a number of artists who kind of do the same thing. And this album is similar in a way. Is she the new Mary J. Blige? No, it's different. You know what I'm saying? It's just pretty dope. She can sing. I like the beats. You know what it is? It kind of reminds me how Mac Wild's debut album, right? Even though it was heavy on the hip hop side, it was kind of like, yo, these are some, like, I don't want to say typical in a bad way, but typical in subject matter R&B records, but well written, well produced, well executed as far as like the delivery. And I feel like her joint is dope. Like, honestly, I don't want to hear an album where every song is a ballad to an artist, or I don't want to hear an album where the R&B artist chooses to basically rap her way through her songs. This is straight up R&B, man, and I love it. Standout tracks for me, Good Bad. I love that joint. That's what really kind of locked me in. Whatchamacallit, featuring Chris Brown. Run Your Mouth, Gut Feeling, obviously Boot Up. And Naked, the bonus track. Really dope album. If you love R&B and soul, this is brand new. Ella Mai, it just dropped. I think that's her name. We shall see. Another album that's in my rotation that's not even new. It's just that his latest album made me go back to it. And that's T.I.'s Trap Music out of 2003. Now, this is hands down my favorite T.I. album. Hands down. I listened to every album and I said, yo, that one is my favorite. But the reason why I went back to it was because I hadn't heard it in such a long time, and because he released a pretty dope album recently, I felt like, oh well, let me go back to the joint. I always say it's my favorite album. Let me go back and check it out. And when I tell you Trap Music is still my favorite T.I. album, it just is. Again, 16 songs deep, standout tracks on here: Trap Music, Rubber Band Man, 24s. T.I. versus Tip. Just a really dope album, and I felt like it was the perfect balance between the T.I. that was rough and rugged when he first dropped, that was hungry and had something to prove, and the emerging superstar T.I. You know what I'm saying? I felt like that was, and maybe some of that is the way fans look at it. Like when an artist makes it big, you don't look at him the same way. But I felt like Trap Music was like the perfect balance between the two. He was becoming successful and he already had a little bit of fame, but he still had that hunger as an MC, so it went well. The new album is dope, but so far Trap Music has been in my rotation and I don't even know why. I just went back to it. Conway, Everybody Is Food. This joint dropped recently, and I was a big fan of Conway before he got shot. Even after he got shot, and he had came back a while back. But then once they signed the Shady Records, it's like their profile got elevated. So now a lot of people pay attention to him, and they release music all the time. I'm not the biggest fan of every project because one, is so many of them, and two, not everybody in the crew is nice. Talk about Griswold Records. And three, sometimes the loops and the some of the things that are kind of redundant in the production, they just happen too much, and it takes away what may be special about each artist. That could just be based off of the fact that, you know, they're dropping, you know, mixtapes and projects all the time. So when you keep hearing stuff, you don't get to sit with it. It's different. But what I really liked about this mixtape or this project was the fact that I had zero expectations going in. Like literally, I just knew he had a project coming out called Everybody Is Food. And I decided, yeah, my phone is blowing up. I decided to check it out and hold up, drink break. And I decided to check it out, right? Zero expectations. Going in and I'm like, okay, this joint is hard. This one's hot. This one's hot. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of snowballed into, you know, you get to the end and you're like, yo, I'm really feeling this joint. It's 11 tracks on here. I think the only features on here is Sky Zoo and Busta Rhymes. Really dope project from Conway, man. Like it's difficult for me to keep up with all of the projects, the label releases, because I feel like I'm not even done with this. And now Westside Gunn got a project out, and I heard some of that, and that's actually better than I expected. But this joint, Conway, Everybody Is Food, has just been in my rotation constantly as of late. So I can't even front. It's going to take a while for something to replace it. And the last record that's in my heavy rotation right now is a real throwback for some of y'all. It is from the legendary Jimi Hendrix Experience. It's not a new album. It's the Electric Ladyland album. You're talking about 16 tracks. I mean, this is one of them. It's one of them, you know what I'm saying? You put it on, you vibe out, you listen to the genius that is Jimi Hendrix. You listen to this dope band. You listen to some of these classics, you know, and the thing I always say about music, and I try to tell people, you know, about listening to music from a time from which you wasn't around to experience anything that was going on. So whereas someone who was around when this joint dropped may feel like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying, I was doing this and I was doing that and I felt this way and that way and blah blah blah. For a person who wasn't there, I think you got to look at the year. You ain't got to do a bunch of research, but you look at the year it came out. You look at, if you're a real music fan, you look at, you know, where this artist was or this musician was within their life and what their motivations behind creating this album is. And then when you go and listen to it, you start to feel that. You start to feel more of a connection because you know now what their motivation was. You know now what the climate was in the world or the climate was in the music industry and how different it was, how experimental or ahead of its time it was, you know, the music was. So sometimes it's easier for me to go back and listen to joints like this and really get locked in and appreciate it. I just gave y'all 5 albums that is in my heavy rotation. This is heavy rotation. Now that doesn't mean that there's some albums that are out I'm not listening to here and there. But as far as joints that I'm like most likely to go to this past October, you know, I was going in on these 5 albums. But what I would like to know right now is what's in your current rotation? What albums? Give me your top 5 for the month of October. What top 5 albums, whether it be R&B, jazz, soul, hip hop, it doesn't matter what it is. What have you been listening to? And it'd be even dope if you're like, yo, I don't even have 5. I was listening to 1 the entire month, all the time. That happens. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Subscribe to this channel for more content. And remember, man, it's all about the music, so go out and support it. Peace.
Drop it on the random.